Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to do a quick tutorial on setting up our Angular project with a Docker file. So this will containerize our application, make it easily transportable to anyone else, and make it easy to develop with. So in order to do this, let's go right into it. And I'll assume you already have your Angular project set up and it's all ready to be built or served locally. So let's go ahead. In our project, we have a code folder with all of our Angular default files. So there's just an empty Angular project currently. The template that they give you when you do ng new command. So in our root folder, let's create a Dockerfile. And in a Dockerfile, the first thing you want to do is say from. So you want a base image that you're going to be building this on top of. So for example, say we have a clean Mac, a brand new MacBook, and we want to tell the script how to actually copy our code over and build our Angular application. So this way it could be done by anyone, anywhere. So we're giving our MacBook, basically the fresh MacBook, access to our code, and then from there we're gonna tell it what to do with that code to make it serve or build. So in this case, instead of using Mac OS, we're just gonna do an image called Alpine. So you could use Alpine, and then you could install Node, and then use Node to build your Angular application. But we could also use the pre-installed version, so Alpine with Node pre-installed. And it's a pretty slim image, so it shouldn't take up too much space in like a registry if you're going to store these images. So yeah, we'll use this for now, and this will give us kind of a quicker development of the Dockerfile, so we don't have to do any extra stuff to install Node. You could also use Ubuntu if you need any extra stuff in there, but for this tutorial we'll stick with Alpine. So from there, what we could do is set our work directory. So this is basically saying where you want to position, yourself in the file folder structure of Alpine. So in this case, we're in the test app folder. If we type pwd in our terminal on our computer, you'll see I'm in users, Jake, desktop, code, test app. So we're just telling it which folder to start in and where we want to put our files. So let's go to user source app. That's just where I generally put files. You could put it anywhere. You could just put it in like a code folder or app folder in the root. It's really up to you. I just tend to put it here. So from there on out, what we could do is copy our package.json over. So package.json. So this is saying copy from our local computer. So here, it's going to copy this file into our Docker image. So in the dot is just saying copy wherever we are. So we're currently in the user source app folder. And then we'll also copy over the package lock. You don't have to do this. You could keep it open instead of locking the versions down. But in this case, we'll just, for completeness, copy over the package lock file as well. Then we'll do an npm install. So this is going to install all of our packages and create the node modules folder in the Docker image from our package.json and package lock file. So you have to think of this as a complete blank slate. So all we're doing is copying over package.json package lock. No code is there at all. We're just going to install the packages only for now. So we could run that right now, and that would actually work and install the node modules, but we won't have any code there to do anything with. So this image, I guess the goal of it will be to serve our Angular application from the Docker image and then be able to run it on our computer locally. So now that we have the node modules installed, let's go ahead and copy over the rest of our code files. So you can say copy dot, so copy everything from whatever the context is. So in this case, we'll be in the code folder, so copy everything in here to wherever we are. So we'll copy everything into the user source app folder. So that's all set. We have our node modules, we have our code, and then we could actually just run it from here. So command will let you specify the default command. So when you run this Docker image, the default command that's executed in this folder. So we'll do user source app node modules .bin ng. This will execute that ng Angular CLI, and then we'll say serve. So this will serve our application on port 4200 by default. and then we'll specify a host of 000, so the default, and then we'll say disable host check. So these two parameters are just fixing kind of the Docker connection, so we could serve our application out and view it outside the Docker image itself. So let's see if we're missing anything. So we're using the node Alpine as a base. We're setting our default home directory, or default current directory that we're in. We're going to copy over the package JSON, package lock, install our dependencies, copy the code over, and then we're going to serve our application. So we should be all set from here. So let's go ahead and run a command. Actually, one thing we should do first, in our code folder, create a new file, docker.dockerignore. And what this will do is it'll tell Docker when you're building an image to ignore these files. So it's kind of like a git ignore file. So we don't want to upload everything to the Docker builder, because it'll just take up more memory and make it a little bit slower. So what we could say is we don't care about the node modules, since this script is going to install them fresh anyways. So we'll ignore those, and then if you have anything else like documents or anything else, you could just ignore those as well. So now that we have that, let's do a docker build, and docker build will say -t for tag, so the name of the image we just say test app. We'll give it a file, so Dockerfile. So the -f you don't need, it will default to Dockerfile, but say if you have a Docker folder with a bunch of Docker files in there, it's useful to specify explicitly where the Docker file is. And then we'll specify the context. So the context is saying when we're copying stuff over, so like copy package.json to here, this directory here is what we're specifying, where we're copying from. So we'll specify the code folder, because the script doesn't really care about the root application. All we have there is a Dockerfile currently. So we'll put it down a level into the code folder. So that's what the script will have access to. So now that we have this, let's run it, docker build. And I ran this previously, which is why it's so quick to run. But you see the context here, 602 kilobytes. So that's all of our code. And it excluded the node modules. If you include the node modules, it would be about 200 megabytes, the context. So it would take a little bit longer to upload. And then you can see it went through all these commands, did npm install, and then it just built the entire image. So you can see successfully built, test app latest. So now we have this built, let's do a docker run, --- remove. So this way when you cancel and try to close the Docker, cancel the Docker run execution, it will automatically remove the image. So it's not leaving a process open. -it, and then we're going to specify the port forwarding. So inside the application, or inside the image, it's going to automatically be serving on 4200, but that port is not going to be exposed to the external world. So what we should actually do is expose 4200 here before we actually build it. So let's go back and rebuild it quick. So I'll just expose 4200. So outside of the image, people can listen to a port that image is forwarding to. So now that we have that, let's go do the docker run, --- remove, -it, -p, and then we'll specify where we want to listen to this on our end. So we'll say 4201 just to make a good example. So we're going to go to 4201 in our browser, but we're going to forward 4200 from inside the image. So the image is pushing, serving the application on 4200, but we're going to forward that to 4201 on our machine. So then we'll specify the name of the tag, the tag image that we built up here. So docker run remove forward the ports, and then specify the tag that we want to run. So if we run that, it will start doing all the IV compilations. So if you run the ngcc command, it will do this too. So it's going to compile some of our packages here. And I guess just a side note, if you want to speed this up and not have to do this every time, in the npm install, you could do, after this, do run ngcc. So that will run that all of this compilation after the installation instead of on run. So it'll make it a little bit quicker. Okay, cool. So now we have this running. It's serving on port 4200 inside the image, our Docker image, and then we forwarded it to 4201. So let's open our browser, go to localhost 4201, and you should see your app running here. So we have our entire application containerized and running on port 4200 inside the image, and we exposed that port to the external world and then forwarded it to 4201 on our machine. So now we have this pretty much all done. You could serve this here, and what you could also do, which would be cool, is you could mount files. So you can mount your source files here to inside the Docker image. So whenever you make a change here, it will automatically update the files here inside the image, and then recompile, and you'll see it refresh the page automatically. So that's something else you could do. I'll leave that one up to you guys to add in. It's pretty simple to do. You just have to specify extra parameter when you run the image, and it would just be specify the mount that you want to mount files. You specify the location in the image, and then where you're mounting them to on the local structure here. And yeah, and if you want to, you could also say you have multiple Docker files, one for development, which would be this one. You could have one for prod, like a production build, where instead of the command ngserve, you could do command npm run build. So this would generate all the static Angular files that you could then use to run in like some host somewhere. You could also run linting here and testing in the script. So you pretty much either use these base images and then run linting. So for example, I'm just going to cancel this Docker run. So I'll do a Docker PS, so we'll see which images are running. We have the test app. I'm going to do Docker stop, and then paste in the container ID, which will stop it from running. Okay, so stop the image, so we do Docker PS again. Should be all clean. Yeah, so we could do a Docker run -remove -it test app, and after you specify the tag, you could specify a new command here instead of running that. So what we could do is npm run build. So I'm just going to run the build command, so I'll cancel that. You could do npm run lint, so I'll run the lint command. You could do whatever else you want, any other command you want to run inside the image. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about this, there's a lot of other stuff you could do with Docker. This is just a simple example of how to containerize an Angular application. So feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, and I could always make a follow-up video if that would be helpful. Thank you for watching.